Scott Morrison has accused the Albanese government of acquiescing to China, warning the live fire drill in the Tasman Sea should serve as a wake-up call. The former Prime Minister, who saw China's bullying tactics up close, has also questioned whether Anthony Albanese was making excuses for China or just not across the detail. This after Albanese falsely claimed that Australia had been notified before Beijing's weapons exercises. In fact, defence officials have now confirmed the warning came through 90 minutes after the exercises began. Well, I spoke with Scott Morrison today and he told me how China had tried to bully as Prime Minister. He said whether the government was making excuses for them or weren't across the detail, I'm not in a position to know, but I don't think either is a very reassuring response. This is another wake-up call of the folly of thinking or hoping the Chinese government is anything different to what they are, a direct security threat to our region where they seek hegemony in Australia and complete dominance of the Indo-Pacific theatre. Morrison also accused the Albanese government of acquiescing to China. He said no amount of appeasement, acquiescence or engagement alters that strategy, and they will seek to go where they want, when they want, and do whatever they want. They tried to charm this government and have had some success. But despite the more amicable tone, the Chinese government still turns up and engages in this threatening behaviour, regardless of how many times people have been to Beijing. And my full interview with Scott Morrison is on the Sky News website. You can read it there. But Scott Morrison is someone who is clear-eyed about the threat that China poses and all of our enemies. It's the moral clarity we're not seeing from the Albanese government. The Prime Minister has basically covered up for Chinese aggression against our own country, while Penny Wong is meeting with the evil Iranian regime and the Palestinian leadership, but not Israel. This government is prioritising our enemies who don't share our values, who want to destroy us, instead of our long-standing strategic allies. I mean, we may as well have the Greens in charge of national security. Albanese is so subservient to the Chinese dictatorship that he actually sought to defend them while Beijing was intimidating Australia.
China issued, in accordance with practice, an alert that it would be conducting these activities, including the potential use of live fire. It is the case that the notice was given. When that occurs, airlines are notified and stay out of the area.
False, false, false. Airlines were not notified. Notice was not given. The Chief of the Defence Force, David Johnston, has revealed that Australia only was notified from New Zealand about the live weapons drill at 11 a.m. last Friday.
We received it at 11:01 of the morning. That is approximately 50 minutes or somewhat less than an hour since that advice came to us from Air Services.
And the Defence Chief also says it's possible a Chinese nuclear-powered submarine is underneath the Chinese warship flotilla. This is extremely aggressive and threatening conduct from the communist regime. The Albanese government has had all of the excuses over this today, but every single one inadequate. The cover-up for a hostile regime intimidating Australia is utterly extraordinary. And the coalition has called for Albanese to apologise for misleading the public.
I think the Prime Minister's either confused, he's mixed up in his details, or he's misled. And whatever it is, I think he needs to stand up and say, look, I got it wrong. I misunderstood the briefing that I had.
This is another indication of Albanese's lack of integrity, and it will contribute to the trust deficit in his leadership. But a far greater concern is how Australia is now exposed on national security. there could have been a major incident if one of the flights, God forbid, was shot down by China in a live weapons exercise. But this also sends a lacklustre message to President Xi about Australia's strength, or lack thereof it, in protecting our national interest and our sovereignty. And Albanese's weakness has only been superseded by that of his foreign minister, Penny Wong. We learnt in The Australian today, thanks to revelations by journalist Noah Yim, that Wong failed to meet any Israeli representatives on her trip to the UN General Assembly back in September. But she did meet with the Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi. As you know, Iran wants the West destroyed and has been funding terror groups Hamas and Hezbollah. But it didn't stop there. Penny Wong also met with the West Bank Palestinian Authority Prime Minister, Mohammed Mustafa. And on social media, Penny Wong said that they spoke about her commitment to advancing the Palestinian people's legitimate aspiration to self-determination. Wong then met with the Lebanese Foreign Minister Habib, where she gave $2 million in our taxpayer money and said, "We want to see a ceasefire in Lebanon as well as in Gaza." A ceasefire. And Noah Yim reports that she also attended a ministerial meeting hosted by UNRWA. As you know, UNRWA has links to terrorism. And while Penny Wong met with our enemies, she demanded Israel stop its military action against the terror groups Hamas and Hezbollah. And she pushed for a Palestinian state, despite the fact Hamas is still the governing body in Gaza.
Australia no longer sees Palestinian recognition as the destination of a peace process, but a contribution towards momentum towards peace. Australia wants to engage on new ways to build momentum, including the role of the Security Council in setting a pathway for two states, with a clear timeline for the international declaration of Palestinian statehood.
Shadow Foreign Affairs Minister David Coleman said Penny Wong had shamefully abandoned our long-standing democratic ally.
The Prime Minister was there. No doubt there were other Israeli officials there. She could have met with them. She didn't. And I think that's consistent with the Foreign Minister's approach on this issue overall. She has shamefully abandoned Israel in pursuit of a few votes in inner-city contests against the Greens. It is utterly wrong.
So we have both Albanese and Penny Wong prioritising Australia's enemies, hostile nations, over our allies. How morally confused, how treacherous for Penny Wong to meet with the Palestinian Authority, which has supported the October 7 attacks, and Iran, which is part of the axis of evil. At the same time, she's alienated our traditional strategic ally, Israel, that shares our values of freedom, democracy and peace. And Israel, of course, also promotes equal rights for women, for the LGBTQI community, and embraces religious diversity. And if our Prime Minister can't find the muscle to call out Chinese warships, then he has serious questions to answer about his own loyalties and where they lie. Because at the moment, he's looking more and more like an old lefty Chinese apologist.